All right, guys, welcome back to the Paranormal Review. We're out here in the forest having a great time. I have a guest on my show. This is Rex from Wasatch Sasquatch. He's been doing Bigfoot stuff for, I met him probably about 6 years ago or so for the first time. So you've been doing stuff for probably a while before that as well. But anyways, you know who I am. I'm going to let him introduce himself more formally so you can kind of get to know him.
I've got my own channel, like you said, Wasatch Sasquatch. I used to be called Wasatch Wendigo, and I've been doing this since about 2016, so it's about 10 years now. And I just, on and off, I'm pretty much the weekend warrior type, Sasquatch researcher, I guess you could say, more investigator. So I do my best, but anyway, I do have some stories and things, and we got some things he wanted to interview me about, so I don't know if...
Yeah, Rex gets out there, and he reached out to me a few years ago to go do some research, and that was really fun. The first time I saw any of your videos was before that, actually. I didn't know that you were even in Utah.
Yeah, I didn't know you were either,
Yeah,
actually. So.
and I had a send in from, I believe it was the Payson Canyon send in
Hmm.
from. There's a guy, and he's filming on the street, and then some stuff rolls down the hill, and then there's like a creature kind of thing, I think, up there.
Yeah.
I think the first video I saw of you was, I think you went up there and you researched that one.
Okay, yeah, I went
And
with Rio, and yeah, that was an interesting
yeah, and so then a
experience.
couple years later, when you reached out to me, I was like, "Oh, cool, this is fun," you know. So I just wanted to kind of get him out here. He actually gets out there in the field. He isn't necessarily one of these couch detectives, which I really appreciate in this field especially. So I just wanted to ask him some questions, kind of get to know his expertise, if you will, and experience with some of these. He has some pretty cool stories as well. So what first got you into Bigfoot research?
I was gonna say, even though I'm not a official researcher or something like that, I am a grade up from someone who just the trolls on the internet that just sit in, like you're saying, the armchair, and I actually get out and hike, and it's physical work to go 5-10 miles into the wilderness. So at least I do that, even if there's people who complain I didn't have my you know recorder flipped on at a certain time and I missed some footage. Just my last video I posted, someone was upset, said you're not new at this, you should have something running all the time and you're out there. Well, I guess I should, but
Things
it was
happen.
with my nephew, and anyway, we're just kind of like amateurs here, unfortunately. But anyway, your question about how did I get started? I actually got started when Rio, he had his channel going full throttle in the beginning. It was called Utah Sasquatch, I
Mm-hmm.
believe. Yeah. And he issued a challenge, project Go and See, and he encouraged people to, how he got into it, I guess, kind of, is he was trying to disprove that his nephew, who was interested in Bigfoot, he told him he had to, practice some critical thinking, and there's no way it could be real. And then he thought, well, I should really follow my own advice, so I'm going to go out there and look for Bigfoot. And he found some, had some experiences apparently, and thought, lo and behold, it sounds like there's something actually out there. I don't know what it is. And so then he wanted everybody, else to do the same thing. Hey, you can go out there yourself. You don't just, take what everybody's saying as gospel. Just go out in the woods, get off the trails, and you might be surprised what you find. So that's pretty much what I did. He had a thing where he would invite people to come with him, and I did a couple of those. The first one I couldn't find where he was, but I found, another friend who knew him, but yeah, so that's how it pretty much started for me, and around, like I said, 2016.
Yeah, awesome. That's good advice too. From Rio for sure. Like,
Yeah, it's that's how you do it, and you kind of do the scientific method in a sense. I mean, it's maybe a crude version of it, but you're walking out in the woods, and that's how with nature, you pretty much have to do some of that. So,
right, you get a lot of other cool stories along the way for sure too.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk about a
Um.
few of those, I guess.
Yeah. What was your first memorable experience or Sasquatch encounter?
The first one, not sure if I can remember which was actually the very first, but I know one that was an early. Oh, well, the first one I guess I remember I had on video. I don't know if it was. I mean, it could have been humans. I was far up Payson Canyon, almost to Mount Nebo, and it was dark, and these weird, like, almost blood-curdling screams are coming out. I think some of it might have been humans, but it was really weird, and I flipped on the recorder, and that was my very first video, and so I don't know what that was. There was some music playing, so I'm on the fence if that was Bigfoot or not, 50-50. But just the audio was unusual for humans. I'll just say that.
It does seem when there's any kind of encounter, at least in my experience, when there's any kind of a, it could be a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot or any of these other creatures that you hear about,
Yep.
it's often accompanied by other weird phenomenon as well. That's at least my experience. So who knows, right?
Yeah, it seems like there's, all sorts of weird things. Your equipment shuts off or whatever, just weird stuff going on.
Right.
Some people see orbs. I have not seen one of those, but yeah, that's another weird thing.
Yeah, interesting. We might have already covered this a little bit, but why do you like to go out and visit these areas and do research in these where there have been sightings and such?
Well, I like doing landscape photography, so I'm going to be out in the woods on occasion anyway, and I like hiking the mountains. I'm from Florida, so everything's perfectly flat, but we did have lots of swamps and things, so I enjoy the greenery, and the greenery in Utah is in the mountains, not the desert. I like the desert too, but the greenery is interesting. Plus, I've been a kind of a rock hound. There's rock hounding to do in Utah. A lot of it tends to be, semi-precious stuff, and there's topaz and topaz mountain and red beryl, but it's just another way. Don't like hunting animals, killing animals, but I guess have a hunter, tendency towards me. So this is part of it where I can go out and look for Bigfoot. I didn't even think, like I said, about doing it until I saw Rio's videos. I figured, be more in the Cascades or something. But if he's finding it in Utah, I thought, well, I'm right by Payson Canyon. He just did, like a video in Payson Canyon. I'll just go up there and it's right in my back door. So, hey, I'll go and do that as well. So maybe kind of a weird response to go from rock hounding to looking
Yeah.
for Bigfoot, but it's kind of
It's
you're
kind of
still looking for something. So.
the thrill of the find, I guess. Yeah, I've been
Yeah,
over to Topaz
definitely.
Mountain once or twice. It's interesting, cool stuff. But you've probably seen much cooler stuff in other places.
Yeah, I've took some scouts out there one time, and yeah, they had a blast, and yeah, it's fun. I've been out there maybe 3 times.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question that might not be in our notes?
Yeah, hope.
Were you a Bigfoot believer before you got into all this, like looking and searching these areas, or is this something that kind of turned you into a Bigfoot believer?
I would say myself, I would think that I was a believer. I didn't, have a lot of, you know, experience or strong opinions about what they were, but I thought, the footage I've seen, of course, Patterson, Gimlin, that there should be something out there. That was my general. I tend to kind of think about conspiracy stuff, and so that's kind of on me on the spectrum of conspiracies. So I might tend to gravitate towards that. Obviously, there's crazy conspiracy theories out there,
Right.
but I don't know. There's so many. Seems like there's evidence. So many people that have said they've seen something. I mean, I don't think they're all crazy and want attention that way.
Right.
If that makes sense.
By doing these, by researching these areas and having some of these stories yourself, has that definitely increased your belief in such a creature? I guess is the question.
Well, it'd have to. Yeah, I would say that I've definitely heard things in the woods I can't explain, and I have not seen one yet. Unfortunately, I don't know if I'd want to have an intense encounter, but I wouldn't mind, from the distance during the day. But yeah, I know people who have seen them, and I think they're incredible people, and so yeah.
Just I don't know from my side, it's I get a lot of people in the comments on my channel as well, and it's like, oh, Bigfoot's not real. There's no way it's real,
Yeah.
and it's really easy for someone to say that
Until we come out here, and
until they actually go into the forest and leave their apartment in New York or wherever they live
yeah, there's
and see
even
one right in front of them, or hear something, a big scream or howls or big, just something that, or see some of these structures that are not possible, and then it's like, oh, okay, now you're a believer all of a sudden, right? And it's interesting.
yeah, there's even a couple of stories of Hollywood type people that did that. They were approached to kind of do like a little documentary something. Who was the guy in Jurassic Park who was like, can't remember his name, but
Oh man.
he's dark hair and he was Ichabod Crane like a long time ago. Anyway,
Right, right. I know you're talking about, don't know the name.
yeah. Anyway, he's one example where they get out there and, well, I'm hearing strange things or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah. I always find that interesting because then it's like you go from a non-believer to instant believer, and there's no in between. It's like you either are or you're not. It seems like, which is
Yeah,
yeah,
experiencer or non-experiencer. Yeah.
exactly. Do you have a favorite area or place to research?
Well, since I'm in the Wasatch here, I live somewhere in Utah County. I tend to think, so I'll just generally say, I used to really like Payson Canyon. In 2018, there was a huge fire that over 100,000 acres, and since then, it's never been quite the same as far as activity up there. So American Fork Canyon is another good one. It's a very broad area. So when I say American Fork Canyon, you know, you could go in all sorts of places and never see Bigfoot because there are a lot of people up there, especially lower elevations. But like if certain places you can go and you get far enough off the beaten track, and you can hear some weird things at night still.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that's one. There's places further south. I know Ogden is a huge hub for them, and what's his name? Kelly Shaw. I can't remember his channel's name. Wasatch. No, it's not Wasatch. Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization.
Right, right.
That's his beat up there in the north, but I tend to be more. I've done around a little bit closer to Sanpete County, but not as much. That's about as far south as I've looked. Then there's the Uintas out there, which are so vast. Bigfoot can get more lost in the like a needle in a haystack. But there are areas you have to depend more on previous sightings out there, kind of, to find where they are
Right.
out there. But I know a few spots out there, and I've been there on occasion. So.
I mean, it's been 10 years. What keeps you motivated?
I don't know if I'm really that motivated actually, but
Right.
again, enjoy being in the wilderness, and why not keep my squatching eyes on and just um, so I try to it's kind of in Utah. You have a short period during the summer and some of the fall and spring. Not the spring as much because in the mountains there's so much snow typically melting off. This year it's not as much snow, but so I'm going to be out in the mountains anyway in the summer, so I'll definitely throw in some expeditions and like this year, for instance, just a little bit more on that. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the Moonlight Gathering. It's kind of in Duchesne, Utah, and a lot of guys get together. I mean, this was going on before I even knew about it, but apparently there's kind of treasure hunters from talk about Spanish treasure in the Uintas and UFOs and Bigfoots. So this year we're hoping to maybe it might not happen actually because we schedules of everybody, but this is just an example of how I would stay motivated. Some of the guys I know, we might get together and do something in conjunction with the Moonlight Gathering, maybe the day before. Excuse me, that actually starts get going. So anyway, that's at least we try to do at least one of those a year.
Yeah, it's pretty
Get everybody
cool.
together, but it's kind of getting harder. Like for instance, I think Rio recently he's going to get a job where he's going to be in California for half of a month or something. So I don't know. That's all up in the air.
Right.
So anyway, but we try to do our best.
Is that usually a pretty big group that goes to the actual gathering, or is it?
Oh yeah, you should go. I'd recommend it. It's I don't know, probably over 100 people. They used to have it on a kind of a fairgrounds, and now it's indoors in an event center in Duchesne. Yeah, it's free. It's not like Paranormal. What's the other one? Phenomicon.
Okay,
That one.
I've seen that one advertised.
That one's good. I've been there one time. It's nice to see the casts. I guess the cast, but the people who are on Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay.
But this one's free of charge, and you hear some interesting stories. In fact, the first thing they do is a barbecue, and only 50 people are there. And what's his name? Another Nathan, and I don't say his full name. He said he actually saw some. I don't know if I guess I can say this. He saw some, Spanish gold bars that they found, and he had the markings on it and everything. And
Interesting.
there they were. So I don't maybe it was fake. I don't know, but that's you see some strange stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
Yep.
Tell me about your most intense Bigfoot encounter that you've had.
Well, so let's see. This was, I can't remember what year, but just a few years ago, maybe 5, something like that. I went up to an area where, I'll just say Mark, that is his first name, and we scouted an area. It's somewhere between the Alpine Loop and I would say Tipple Fork Reservoir. So that's a pretty big stretch of land, but
Yeah.
somewhere in there, we were we call it squatching, walking out in the middle of the day doing a day trip. There's all sorts of weird, some people don't like structures, but there's these weird configurations, and it does seem to, go along with where people have sightings and hear wood knocks and things. And so we saw a lot of that, and so then I went back, I think that was in autumn, and then the next early summer I went back. I tried to organize a, kind of an event where everybody camp out. Nobody could go. One guy could, but I couldn't find in the parking lot. How it is where you can't, no cell phone reception. And
Right.
so I thought, well, I got all my stuff. I'm just going to kind of be stubborn and head out there anyway and just camp alone. And that led to my, I'd say, most intense experience. I didn't see anything. I kind of didn't want to see anything, so I wasn't. But how I remember it, I didn't know there is a little bitty trail that you can get to this clearing, but I was just going straight through the woods and in dark with a flashlight.
So you're not even in your tent yet. You're just hiking still.
Nothing happened yet, but I'm just saying
Okay.
how I got there. So I get to this little clearing. Finally, I can see this is it. After going through all this woods and everything, and when I kind of try to fall asleep, so I'm quiet there, and so I hear something seems to really big position itself on one side, flanking me on the clearing, and then there's somebody on the back side. So it sounds like I'm flanked on each side, and then I hear kind of rock clacks. I hear some wood knocks, and hear something which cracks, kind of like a branch just being broken. And as it proceeds during the night, I hear some squirrels. How the daytime usually, if you're walking along and the squirrel sees you and he gets all flustered and
Right.
starts the alarm thing. He started doing that all around me. So I thought, well, there's something there, and so then at one point, I probably about like 3 a.m. or something, or maybe a little earlier. Might have been like 2 a.m. I can't remember, but I heard bipedal running. It seemed like something kind of took off from the edge and kind of skirted the clearing and going through the grass, swish, 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 swish. And it sounded kind of like an Olympic sprinter with some weight behind him, and so that was rather unnerving when you're all alone. And
Did you get any sleep at all?
I did not actually.
I would definitely would not.
I just stayed up, couldn't sleep. And the moon was less than half full. I mean, who is going to be out there, going full tilts with an
Right.
Olympic sprinting in the edge of the woods there?
Just doing the workout in the middle of the forest. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I would not. I would not. Did you think to look at all, or are you just kind of like, I'm just going to sit here until it goes away?
I tried to pull up some thermal, but the thermal app is very primitive. You plug it into your phone. I need to upgrade that, but I kind of just looked around, and it's all dark, and
You weren't going to put your flashlight out and be like, "Here I am."
I didn't want to do that. It seems like
Not a very smart thing to
the
do,
wrong
probably.
thing to do. I could do that, but I was, you're kind of, when you're there, it's like you're intimidated.
Yeah, all the
It's like,
adrenaline, your
you're
heart's
almost like
pumping.
praying not to see something. I mean, obviously, maybe that's just me, but about right before the sun came up, like 5 a.m., I could hear one. Finally, it just moved off, and then the other one moved off. So right at, about an hour before the sunlight. So they were there, I think, from what I could tell, all night, and just there. So
I've heard similar stories, and it's interesting. There's a lot of similar ones like that, but actually, I've never had anything like that happen.
yeah, and then
I would lose it. I would be like,
yeah, it was intimidating at night when and then I told I text messaged Rio and said, hey, I just had this experience, and so then we all went out there. They're like us three, the two Nathans, I'll call them, because they're Nathan Rio and the other Nathan, and that autumn, and they got there before I did, and I again walked in the night I hiked in, but they said they already heard a whole tree knocked down, and they were
same spot.
yeah, same spot, and they were hearing wood knocks everywhere. He says the most wood knocks he's ever heard. They were a little further off than when I was there alone, but they were having a good old time, like scaring us there or something, whatever they were.
Oh man,
they were doing.
just playing,
Yeah.
That's
And
yeah.
so, and then the other Nathan took his brother, and I went back even later in that autumn just to see if we didn't have anything happen. It was kind of windy and we couldn't hear anything, but But anyway, that's that spot. That's probably my most intense,
Interesting.
involved experience.
Have you gone solo camping again since, or is that was that your?
I try to avoid it. I had planned to meet a friend up in the Uintas, and I couldn't find it, and I ended up being alone. But I don't plan it
Like to
usually.
try, yeah. Especially
Yeah,
after that one.
yeah. Just because if it's a Bigfoot area, so.
Yeah, I just hear stories like that, and I'm like, nope.
And it seems like I don't. Maybe it's just my imagination, but we've had several experiences where we think they know us in American Fork Canyon. They kind of, I don't know, come out of the woodwork. And
They're
I have a
comfortable around
couple
you.
more stories where, yeah, I mean, we might get to those. But yeah.
There's been a lot of sightings up around this area, so I don't. It's not unlikely that you would run across something, you know. Besides that one, have you had any other experiences or any other stories that you've had encounters with?
I have, yeah. So let's see. There's a couple more I probably should mention. So let's see. One winter, I was doing landscape photography. This was, I'll just say, Lake Blanche. You know, it's a very popular hiking trail. It's, I believe, it's Little Cottonwood Canyon. You know, up near Salt Lake. And they keep the highway there. I guess you could call it a highway. The paved road cleared because there's a lot of skiing up that direction. So you can get to that hike. And anyway, I like to hike kind of in the afternoon because I'm not a morning person really. And so I'm hiking up there, and by the time I do my photography and start hiking down, it's been dark for about an hour, and it's actually started to snow. So it's snowing and it's dark. It's something like July or January 29th,
Oh
something
man,
around there. So it's pretty cold out there, and I'm afraid that so it's been packed down. A lot of people have packed down the snow, so it's almost like ice. So on my way up, I'm okay, but I'm afraid on my way down, I'm going to slip and slide. At some point, I'm going to lose it and fall. And eventually, that's what I did. I slipped on the ice, snow, I guess, but it was compacted. I didn't have any spikes on, so that's the problem. I should have
right.
packed some spikes. And so I fall down. I kind of crunch my shoulder, and I get up and I kind of mutter aggressively. And at that point, the second I do that, there's a little creek there, and the opposite side of the creek that you can't even get to really. And at night, I hear a whoop woo go off, and it's not that far. It's maybe like, I don't know, 70 feet away or something, 80, whatever, the 100 feet the other side. And kind of a shudder goes up my spine, and I wasn't expecting that. And it sounded like a monkey. It didn't really sound like an owl. An owl sounds more mechanical, like whoo, whoo. I can't do an owl, but it's not
Right.
that sound. It's like a bird. But this sounded more like a monkey or something. It's not like a coyote, not a coyote. So that's another one. That one actually scared me a little bit more in a sense than the one where it seemed like they were being more playful. I wasn't as freaked out. I was alone, but the one I told you prior when I was camping out. So yeah, I just kind of hiked back, and I was.
It's almost more confrontational because you're just right there in the open.
Yeah, it was a loud vocalization. I didn't have that on the other one where they were just very quiet, except for their knocking and all that.
Yeah,
Excuse me. So that's that one.
interesting. Um, that those whoops that you heard, were they very guttural? Like, I'm not sure if that makes sense, or like a little bit more like throaty kind of a sound. If that makes sense, or is it or just
A good volume to them. Again, like you have to kind of go back to sounding like a monkey, but larger. I don't know if it was a full-size Sasquatch or not, but it didn't have. It was the higher pitch, so I don't know if it didn't have a lot of
gotcha?
bass, but there was a good amount of volume to it.
That makes sense.
It wasn't. I know some people describe it so loud that you can hear it in your chest, and it's just like immensely loud. It wasn't that loud, but it
Okay.
was very surprising, considering it was dead quiet out there and there's a
And then
light
all of a
snow
sudden,
falling everywhere. So, but I think he wanted me to at least hear him. So
yeah,
he,
like, don't come over
he
here.
must have heard my muttering. If I remember right, I had like a full winter jacket on, so I looked kind of big probably, and I had like a head thing, so I kind of had like a cone head, and so that probably didn't make any difference, but I look bigger probably than I am. So,
Yeah,
because
maybe just kind of like a
it
communication.
was
I'm over
cold.
here, avoid this area, kind of a thing, maybe or something.
Yeah, I might have surprised him, or I don't know. Who knows? Or
Interesting.
he just wanted me to know he's there. Let's see. So there's another one I should go over as well. So this is a place called Forest Lake. I've noticed recently it's kind of drying up. That lake is kind of not what it used to be. We have seen some prints in the past. There used to be a lot of tadpoles. We were thinking that they were maybe eating the tadpoles. Like you can go out there, it's not too deep. But anyway, so one evening, well, it wasn't quite evening, it's kind of dusk. When we walked in there, it was daytime. It was, again, Mark, me, and Rio. And this is a new area we'd never been to before. We just saw it on the map and said, hey, we'd like to go out there. And it was a lot further out than we've been in American Fork Canyon before. So we were kind of blown away by how squatchy it is in comparison to some places. Lots of big pines and debris and I don't know. So we're looked at it all and we were on our way out. We're just about, well, actually, no, let me back up. Mark likes to do, he's able to do a very good, I think if I remember right, it's a morning dove call. So he was doing those across the lake, and then he would do an owl, and we were getting a response of an owl on the other side.
Interesting.
And it was sounded like a big owl. I mean, maybe it wasn't an owl, but anyway, then I can do a duck, so I would do a duck, and then we're on our way out. Rio kind of was with, I believe, one of his dogs and doing his own thing, and we finally found him, and so we were going to head out. And, and I think if I remember right, Rio's recording died or something like that. But anyway, as we're going out, we hear it sounds like a chorus of wolves. I mean, it doesn't sound really like coyotes, and it sounds like they're canines, but they all together, one big one starts, and then all the others join in. It lasts maybe, I don't know, like 10, 15 seconds, and then boom, it's gone. It's as if it never was there. They don't trail off like they're walking out of the area or anything, or, coyotes kind of will,
Right.
You hear little yips as they're, none of that. It was just like,
it just fades out eventually.
it was gone. And we did one, we thought, hey, let's do a reply, our best to like kind of do exactly as they did. So we did us three, I don't want to do it here, but, we kind of did our wolf calls,
yeah.
and they didn't respond back. And so that was it, just one time, and it was really weird. And I don't know if that was Bigfoot, but it could have been, because I think we were theorizing that they wanted to show us, again, what they can do. They can imitate all sorts of things, and we were kind of doing our little imitations with the owl over there. Maybe it was them as well, I don't know. But anyway, that was Forest Lake. Yeah, we had a weird experience there.
Where is Forest Lake anyways?
It's kind of hard to describe. You go pretty far up the canyon. There's an area where you kind of have a very narrow area where it was actually several years. It was dilapidated, and they had to like completely redo it. So they just reopened it, I think, last year. But you have to go past that area, and it's not quite to Pittsburgh Lake and where the gold areas are. There's some areas where you can look, kind of gold flower up there, which is Mary Ellen Gulch. So not quite that far.
Okay.
So Mary Ellen Gulch, and Pittsburgh Lake would be on the left if you're heading up the canyon, and this is on the right. It's Forest Lake way up there.
Interesting.
So yeah, the last time we were there though, the water was lower and we didn't have any activity at all, and we're thinking that, I don't know, it's getting dry and maybe there's not a good source of water for it.
This year it's probably even worse.
Yeah, it might be just almost a mud puddle. I don't know. Okay, so this is a weird experience. I like to sometimes do a summer trip that's a little further out of state of Utah. So I've done, one year I did Colorado. I hit like 3 or 4 different places in Colorado, as much as I could on one trip. And then one year I did Wyoming. So this will be Wyoming. And I did the Tetons, and then I did the northern tip of the Wind River Range. And there are some sightings in the Wind River Range of Bigfoot. I think it's more on the south and the eastern side, if I remember right. But on the northern end, there's some, if you're familiar with David Politis' Can-Am project, Missing 411, there's a couple stories up there. In fact, let me see, I might have some notes here. He says, Echo Lake and 10 miles southwest of Square Top Mountain, and a place called Bruce's Camp. If you go on his YouTube channel, you might be able to look those up. You look up Wyoming. But anyway, the place where I was at, I was interested in Square Top Mountain It's a very kind of picturesque. It's just how you describe. It's kind of like a granite peak, but it's sawed off on the top like it's a table almost. And the headwaters to the Green River there's kind of a lake, a nice blue lake, and that's where that originates. Plus, there's some pioneer cabins that are still there, and all that's there. So anyway, I'm there. I'm setting up my camera, and I see a beaver kind of going in the water, and there's this huge electrical storm. It looks like in the distance. Kind of, it's sun setting, but there's this golden hue. But then there's this streak of black and blue sky and thunder and off in the distance, and I'm thinking it's coming this direction. And let me hurry up and take my photos. And so I'm setting up the camera. And I don't know, again, maybe it's my imagination, but I felt like I got whacked on the head, and there's nothing, there's nothing there.
Oh.
And so I just, taking him back, something that should happen. So I set my camera, for about 3 seconds on a timer, just in case if the tripod's a little unstable.
Right.
I had a lighter weight tripod. And so I had set it, and I stepped back. So my hand shouldn't be anywhere near the front. I don't think I remember, errantly pressing it by accident. But I see on the film, there's this hand blocking the frame in the camera.
Oh, no.
And it's this white hand. I was so freaked out, I deleted it, and I feel like stupid that I did, because I don't have anything to look at now.
How long ago was that?
This was, I can't remember exactly. I'd have to look it up. Probably before 2020, I would say.
So you've probably used that card a lot since then.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was like, I got some recovery on that one.
I don't know which one it would have been. But yeah.
That's crazy.
But yeah, that was that experience. And then that evening, it was the most violent electrical storm I've ever experienced. I'm there in my camper, well, not camper, it's an SUV. And yeah, I try to sleep. It's just long enough so I can, sleep inside. Man, there's lightning and thunder just going out. It's just horrible. I think I managed to sleep a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I think I've heard stories where electrical storms like that maybe causes energy for paranormal things where they can, manifest. I don't know. But yeah, that coincided with that one. So
interesting.
It was a weird experience.
That is weird. Yeah, I mean, to get smacked in the back of the head with something and then have an invisible hand, just that would be really.
And I don't know if that lends credence to the missing 401. Is like are there spirits there, and extra-dimensional beings, or who knows?
Is it hauntings? Is it?
But it was a
Bigfoot?
weird experience in an area which was known for so few disappearances. So.
Yeah, you're not really new to interviews either. You've done some pretty cool interviews with some pretty cool people, it sounds like. If you want to tell us about some of those.
Yeah, I thought they were interesting. So, well, there's one guy who he goes to the Uintas. He goes all over the Uintas. He's a fisherman. He does landscape photography as well, kind of as a hobby, I believe. I won't say his name, I guess, but anyway, there's a place he goes in the Uintas every year, and every year for 10 years, something weird happens. And so he kind of goes through the whole, list. We go by year what happened, and and yeah, just he hasn't seen anything clear, but it's a place where, well, I guess I'll kind of say there's people who have disappeared. It's another missing 411 area.
Gotcha.
If you look up someone locally in Utah that disappeared, he was a boy, was probably like 12 years old or something, disappeared there in the exact same basin. But yeah, so let me see if I can remember one of the weird things. Oh yeah, one year, let's see, he said that he'd hear a lot of kind of howling, and it just went on and on and on, and it sounded like something was mourning, and and then one time they had a whole herd of several deer came right into their camp to join them. He says he's never had that happen before up there. And it's like they were scared off. I think there was, again, he was hearing some vocalizations or something cracking in the woods, and then they come into the camp and they just hang out with them all evening until they go to bed. And it's like they were less afraid of the humans, or knew the humans would kind of deter whatever is out there. And I mean, that's just our interpretation, but could be that was the case. And
yeah, it's interesting.
but anyway, for 10 years, every year something odd happened for him. So that was an interesting interview. he believes in Bigfoot, so obviously. Let's see, another
After that,
one.
yeah, that's interesting because deer are usually terrified of humans.
Yep, that's exactly. So another one, let's see, if you go to my channel, this one's entitled, It Scared Me to Almost to Where I Couldn't Move. And that one was interesting. Again, that was actually near Forest Lake. I'll just go ahead and say that. On the road up to Forest Lake, there's a side road that takes you off of the main rocky dirt road. And that road, which is so rough that unless you have like a off-road vehicle, you have to walk it. It's the last 2 miles. So on that road, that's where he had an experience where, and I can't remember the exact details. He was like kind of seeing it flit between the trees, and I can't remember. I'd have to refresh my memory on the interview, but I could tell he was really emotionally disturbed from it. Almost, he won't take his family there anymore. He's a hunter. He likes to hunt, but
Not there anymore.
he was really shaken up.
Yeah.
Up there. So another one. There's a couple guys that I interview that. One is I'll just say his channel is Rob Robles, and he's a very interesting guy. He actually, just for business, he sells antique firearms, ones that from the 18th, 19th, 20th centuries mainly. But anyway, he is interested in structures, kind of like what I do with my channel. I do more of the day trips where I'm kind of looking at structures. Obviously, some people just write them off as all being made by humans, and maybe some of them are. But he's near Payson Canyon, and this is before the fire. At least there's all sorts of. He would check with the camp attendants and ask them, like, do you know who's creating these structures? And they would say, no, they appear at night, and sometimes they disappear at night, and it just so. One time he was there on day one when they opened the gates in summer, and this was a winter where it was a very strong winter, and there were 10 feet of snow. The camp attendant was saying they would have to, they'd check on things. Occasionally they would go in with a snowmobile, and they could kind of gauge how deep the snow was. And so there's not, things going up there during winter necessarily doing these things. And it's like almost a 15-mile walk in from the closed gate. And on day one, this thing just appears, basically, or it was already there. And I doubt there were humans. In fact, no, wait, this one was right after a little after the fire, I think I remember. And they were still had if you went up there during I can't remember, but basically you couldn't go up there for a while or you would be in trouble and get $10,000 fine.
Right.
And then that summer they changed it to where you could go up again. And so that was kind of evidence we were using that nobody had been up there creating these structures. When nobody's allowed up there, they get a $10,000 fine. There's 10 feet of snow, and on and on. But there are these structures up on a hill. But unfortunately, we haven't seen a whole lot of new structures. He's kind of monitored the area, and it's way down from what it used to be. And maybe they moved on. One lady we know who claims she's psychic. She claims that they moved on to Colorado. I don't know. But anyway, that's what she says. But anyway, that's Rob Robles. I have two interviews with him. I think they're long enough that they're in parts 1 and 2. There's another guy named Rex Kozlowski. He has 50 years. He's kind of been, he's up more north near Brigham City and that area. So he told us a lot of stories from up there with, he sees them kind of in the shadows. He doesn't see them that clearly, but he'll hear, wood knocks. And he kind of outlined an area where he thinks he knows where there's this road where they'll put up these, you think there's 2 competing groups of them that kind of will put these, he's interpreted to think that they put up these kind of markers like, hey, this is my turf and this is your turf. And occasionally you'll hear them kind of like they're having a little war or something. I don't know. But,
interesting.
Yeah, but their Ogden area is really a hot spot. I just haven't gone up there because it's further away from me. But
Right, makes sense.
But he's right to the Idaho border. He kind of has a theory where there's these mountains and it goes right up, and then it kind of stops. And he's thinking that they're probably traveling, and then it kind of stops, and they kind of get backlogged to where there's a whole bunch of them, like right up there, because there's nowhere to go, kind of, because it's just desert for miles and miles. Beyond that, but anyway, that's Rex Kozlowski. one more I should mention, and there's ones I'm not going to even mention here that are on my channel. And one
Yeah,
lady,
he has a bunch of these on his channel. So if you want to hear more of these, definitely check out the channel, guys.
yeah, those are the more interesting, I'd say, videos I have. I mean, usually I'm walking around the woods, and I just joke that if you can't fall asleep, you can go to my channel. I'm walking around the woods, and you'll soon be put to sleep.
Bigfoot
But these
ASMR.
are an exception. These people are, really freaked out telling these stories. It's more, interesting, I guess you could say.
Yeah, for sure.
So one more, at least. There's a lady who, she was. This is in the Uintas. There's a company called I think it's Bear River Range or something. Uinta. I mean, not Uinta. Like yurt company or something like that. If you run a Google search, I think you might find them. But anyway, they have one yurt that is further out than all the others. She and her friend were. She does a lot of hiking. They were hiking in. If I remember right, it started to. The weather got really bad. I can't remember if it was rain or what. They weren't planning on going inside this yurt because they hadn't paid for it, but they kind of had no choice. So they thought, we need to go in here for the evening. It's open. It's in the middle of nowhere. So they spent the night in the yurt. And while she was there, she describes that they heard best she could describe, it sounded like this creature was singing, and it was so extremely loud. It was like have you ever heard Tibetan throat singing, where it's kind of like, oh, I can't do it, but
Yeah, all right, yeah.
so it was kind of like doing that, walking up the mountain and getting louder and louder, and she could tell it was almost right at her level of her bed. And the yurt was, up how yurts are, they're up on stilts because of the snow. If you're So anyway, all she had was she said a 22 light round, pistol or something like that, which is, a very small caliber, bullet or round. So she and her friend, they were running very quiet because they don't want to, scream or whatever, and it finally just kept going on up the mountain, and we were wondering if, I know they're intelligent, and maybe they know that yurts kind of are a Tibetan type, structure, and maybe she's able to read her mind even, I don't know. But anyway, she said the main thing it was so loud, it's like impossibly loud. And it was just,
Right.
and so she, anyway, that's not something you don't hear
Interesting.
every day. And, but if you listen to her, she seemed extremely credible. I mean, it seems fantastical, but I tend to believe her. So. And she had a witness too, and she was. They were planning to do the whole Uinta Highline Range, 100 or so miles. And I was kind of letting her know that up there it's high enough elevation that usually there shouldn't be Bigfoot, just like there aren't bears up there. They tend to be down in the thicker stuff. So they were almost so freaked out they didn't want to do that trek anymore, but they decided we'll go and do it, and they did it, and then they didn't have anything happen. But
Interesting.
that was their experience there. It's just a really spooky area, and I agree. I'll mention it's not that far really from Christmas Meadows, and there are multiple sightings. You can go online of Christmas Meadows with Sasquatch sightings. So it's kind of in that general area.
Right. Awesome.
And just a couple more I'll mention just in closing here as far as people I've interviewed. I don't know if anybody remembers in Provo a few years ago, it actually made the news. There's a sighting where you can kind of see up on the mountain a little something black moving around, this wide creature, and I guess he put his name out there, so Austin Craig. If you go on and look that up, there was some just in their neighborhood they could see. And
that's the one way up on the mountain that's walking on the crest, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
exactly.
That was an awesome, crazy one.
And we managed to track down the house that did it, and I had a friend who went there, and he knocked on the door, and he got the full resolution footage, which, if you look at it, it's actually a lot better than what you have online or was on the news. And he'd explained to me that what he did, he put it on a Google Drive, and it automatically downsampled it.
Right.
But anyway, I took that, and I took the full resolution thing. I zoomed in and tried to stabilize it, and so you can look at that on my channel. And then I interviewed Austin Craig about it, and he kind of goes into details of how this company contacted him and said he could copyright it, and he thought it'd be a good idea. but it backfired. So now anytime somebody wants to use it, that company like goes after them, says you can't use it. And so anyway, just stuff like that. But anyway, that's one interview. Also another, my most recent one is a lady that actually had a daytime sighting. She was near Saratoga Springs, and that one's entitled "Daytime Bigfoot Sighting in Utah." And she kind of took us on a little field trip out there, and we pointed out where it happened and all of that. And we didn't, see anything happen. It was apparently pretty early in the morning. It was daylight, but yeah, you can look at that one as well. I think she said she heard a sound in her voice, and it said "look," and then there it was, just right by the tree, and it was kind of looking at her, and then this biker comes by, and it kind of ducks behind the tree, and they didn't even know it was there because it just zoomed by the other way, and so then she starts walking to get kind of, she thinks, I need to pick up the pace, but it just doesn't follow her, it just kind of watches her all the way out, and so that's, daytime sightings are pretty rare, so anyway, she, again, seemed credible. She was, but yeah, that was that story. It was interesting. That's my most recent interview. So, actually, no, that wasn't an interview. We just went out there and did the field trip thing. So
yeah,
but
nice.
She tells her story on I think looked like a TikTok video or something, and I got permission to throw that footage up on the intro to my where we went out with her to see what was going on. We had quite a group of people that kind of went out to see what happened and where it took place.
Right. I like interviews with people and just talking to people their stories. I haven't done a ton of interviews lately. I've done mostly there's some guys I talked to from Saskatchewan. There was like a sighting up there. This is like 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago ish. But it's most of those interviews are over a screen, But when you can actually talk to someone in person and talk to a bunch of people in person about their experiences, you just get a variety of stories. And it's more believable because you can see their reactions. You can see that they're emotionally invested in that story. It isn't just like, I'm making a YouTube video and then cut and then the next part of their video. You know what I mean? Like, to actually be there with that person and hear their stories and then hear so many varieties of stories and then see there's differences in each of them, but then the similarities in all of those stories are what get me every time, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. There's always like... you can tell that they were there, and it breathes a life into it. That just someone reading a script. I have notes here to jog my memory, but hopefully, again, the people I was interviewing are the one telling the story in that case. But,
right.
But yeah, I can hear even over the phone, if they're sound legitimate or not. So yeah.
Right, but I'm just saying, like even like you're relaying their stories, but a few minutes ago you told us a bunch of your own stories, and you can tell like you were there. But when you do these interviews with people in person, like you actually see like they actually believe it. It isn't a YouTube video like you're saying where it's scripted and you can't tell or not, and it's like it's just that raw like fact that the people believe it adds like a lot of credibility to the actual story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, it can be some like guy with a city slicker, or some guy in the South with a Southern accent, but you can tell that they have a certain emotion because they went through this experience. So.
Right. And that just, that's why I like to hear personal stories because, like I was saying before, even if it wasn't, they actually believe it. And you're like in that moment. And I would like to believe, I think for me, the overwhelming amount of people saying, this is what I saw, and then, like I was going to before, there's so many different varieties, but they all have similarities that tie them all together. And to me, there's patterns. Yeah, there's a pattern. There's a recognition of those patterns, and to me, that what's the word? Maybe not verifies, but it's a
legitimacy or something.
Yeah, legitimacy or authenticity of those experiences. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
To you, what is the most convincing sighting or experience that you've heard of? Not necessarily a personal experience, but just that you've seen out there. I guess if that makes sense.
As far as evidence, people usually turn to the Patterson-Gimlin footage. I mean, that's like I guess you could say the GOAT, they say these days, the greatest of all time. Still, even though it was like 1967 when they filmed it, there are other things out there which are interesting. There's I think it's referred to as the Independence Day footage, I believe it is, where there's kind of a baby being held. It's a little blurry, but it's still interesting. I don't know what to make of it. It's one of the better pieces of footage, I would say, potentially, unless it's somehow fake. But I don't know. Those are good as far as video, footage. There's other stories out there and things which like the Albert Ostman story is an old classic one where he was abducted by them in a sleeping bag and escaped by giving them some chewing tobacco or something. But yeah, I don't know. There's lots and lots of stories out there, though. I don't know. A couple of people that people think are hoaxers, maybe, and I don't know. There's some good footage from Todd Standing, which it looks good, but I can't tell from one way or the other. And I'm not going to say he's a hoaxer, but people do have experiences with him. They actually go up and see Bigfoot. So I just don't know if he was trying to get something extra good and felt pressure and he poked something or not, but he has some good stuff potentially.
Right. Have you heard about this new documentary about the Patterson Gimlin stuff?
There's different ones. You mean the most recent?
The most recent one, where
they kind of try
they're saying that they rehearsed it and stuff, and they have that footage.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I've heard that there was some controversy about it, trying to put it back again to the status of it being hoaxed. Basically, is that what it is?
Supposedly, I haven't seen the documentary. It's at some film festival or something. Supposedly, according to this guy, he got from the son of Gimlin or Patterson, or I think it's Patterson. Supposedly, this guy gave him footage of them rehearsing this a few months before the actual sighting. I don't know if that's true or not.
Was there actual footage that they were able to share at the film festival?
Supposedly, okay. Right? And my thing about that is,
does it look real though?
Supposedly it looks real. Supposedly they are rehearsing stuff. But the thing is, to me, does that necessarily prove that they actually hoaxed it? Or is that them just trying to reenact it, trying to show, hey, this is what we saw and this is what happened that day, which is totally possible, right? So just because you have footage of someone rehearsing something that happened, there's no proof that footage happened before. They're saying that it happened before, but can you really trust that? I don't know.
Yeah,
right?
It's kind of like things they've had in the past where some guy supposedly said that, raised his hand, metaphorically, and said, "Hey, it was me in the suit.
Exactly.
I did it, and here, let me demonstrate the walk." Well, your walk still looks nothing like it, and let me put on this suit, and it looks like garbage, and so who knows?
Exactly, who knows? I will say my only problem with the Patterson Gimlin footage is how it's used as a litmus test. In my experience reviewing footage or seeing other people review footage, it's always
it measure up to it, or
it's always well, that one does not walk like the Patterson Gimlin footage.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So therefore it has to be fake. Or, oh, that one walks exactly like the Patterson Gimlin footage. Therefore it has to be real. And in my experience, I've reviewed hundreds, if not thousands, of footages at this point, or at least seen footages. Some of them I don't review because I'm like, this is obviously something, or I just can't tell and I don't want to give an opinion on it.
Yep.
But I'm like,
more notable stuff.
Yeah, and I'm like, if I'm a hoaxer, and if every single person who walks like a Patterson Gimlin Bigfoot gets called real, what am I going to do? I'm going to go out there and I'm going to try to walk exactly like that. Therefore, all these people who review things say it walks exactly like the Patterson Gimlin footage, therefore it has to be real.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I feel like Bigfoots are, we've already talked about all these different stories they have different things that happen to them, different experiences, different styles of sightings or experiences. They're not always the same. I feel like if you go to the mall and watch people walk, you're going to see 1,000 different walks, right?
Do they walk like Sean Connery or Tiny Tim on the, there's quite a range.
Yeah. So in my experience, I just feel like that's my biggest criticism of not the actual film, but how people use it as a litmus test. Because I'm like, you can't do that.
Yeah, and with that, there's a story. If you look close at the musculature, I think near the calf, it looks like there's this bulge that comes out as she's walking, and it looks like I can't remember the medical term, but it sounds like there's an injury, and so she's probably walking a little bit slower and more deliberately than normal. And there's reports that Sasquatch can really walk pretty fast if they need to. So
right,
that might be part of it as well.
Yeah, true. In your experience, what is the biggest hoax that you have seen that you could probably tell is a hoax, and how can other people What could help other people discern what could be a hoax or not a hoax, in your opinion, at least?
Okay, well, big hoaxes. I'm not an expert on hoaxes. I try to keep an open mind and not just yell shrilly hoaxer like I'm a
Right.
online internet troll. But some things are pretty bad. I mean, I've heard back in the day, I guess some people admitted to fashioning these wooden strap-on things, shoes or print makers, where they would stomp around and doing that. And trying to remember, I think Les Stroud, and he did this, I think on purpose to Dr. Meldrum. He had someone make these heavy-duty metal. I mean, this wasn't technically hoaxing, but he tried to see if Meldrum could tell if it was fake or not. And Meldrum did actually pass the test. And, he kind of said, I can't remember what he said, but anyway, yeah, I don't know. There's lots of, I know there's videos where when they first came out with AI, there's kind of this jerky video where this Sasquatch looks in the window and it's kind of doing like this, and its eyes are moving around, and it looks really jerky. I saw almost the same thing, except it was a UFO, a gray or something. Its head was ducking and looking in the window, just like that. So that's, I would say, a pretty obvious hoax. I mean, it looked good if you don't recognize how jerky the movement is almost. I don't know. Let me see. There's people who they say again are hoaxers. Like again, I mentioned Todd Standing. I don't put him in the category of hoaxer, but some people would. I just try to keep an open mind. I know if you've ever heard of Dr. Matthew Johnson, he takes people up to his place in, I think, Oregon, and he's said some pretty fantastic things where he kind of mind spoken with them, and they've told him that they are these beings that actually of light that can go into the trees and gain sustenance from them during the day, and then they manifest physically at night as Bigfoot or other things even, and I don't know what to make of that. I mean, maybe, but
Maybe.
you can't prove that, and it's really far out there.
Right.
He says that they didn't fall like Adam and Eve, so they're still on another notch higher level, and so they're not tied to their physical body all the time like we are. And that sounds good. I mean, maybe not.
Kind
But
of interesting stuff.
but he wrote a whole book about that, and people would say, "Oh, hoaxer, obvious, Looney Tunes." He's also a psychologist, so that may or might not help his position. But anyway, that's some people that are come to mind that are kind of colorful. I would say, I don't know.
Right.
But
Makes sense.
they're just guys like me trying to do their best. I don't know. They're probably doing better than me, but yeah, weird stories. So I don't know if they're hoaxers or not.
In your opinion, what is the biggest evidence for Bigfoot?
Well, there is a preponderance of sightings. I don't know if you call that evidence. As far as something you can physically, tangibly touch, in a sense, there's the hair and DNA evidence. I guess would be kind of the king of all of that in a sense. There's the Melba Ketchum. Again, people will call hoaxer again. I could explain why or why not, but that. But anyway, there's DNA evidence out there. I would say they all just kind of shorthand say that my understanding was that they gathered a lot of evidence. In fact, I believe that David Politis went on Coast to Coast AM and got extra evidence from their viewership. They said they solicited some extra, and they got some actual additional on top of what he and Scott Carpenter already gathered. They sent it off to a bunch of different types of labs, crime labs, universities, forensic lab, just and once they found out it's Bigfoot, they didn't want their name attached to it, but they had found that apparently a female around 12,000 years ago mated with whatever this was. So I believe that's the mitochondrial side, and then the other side, whichever that is the male, and that one was completely unidentifiable out of the hundreds of millions of database pairs that doesn't exist in the data bank, Gen Bank, and so
It's really interesting.
yeah. And then my understanding was that nobody would publish the work, and they finally got a newer magazine, scientific journal, looked at it and said it was good, repeatable work. They definitely would publish it. and then their legal team got involved, and nope, they wouldn't publish it anyway because of the legal team. But someone, I think his name is Adrian Erickson in British Columbia, he was able to purchase that journal. And so then they published it, and then that's why people say, oh, they self-published, that reeks of hoaxing. Well, I just explained the background to that, and they would have published it, but they just wouldn't let them do it, the legal team. But they had already attained the signatures, so they published it. It's self-published now. Even the DNA, my understanding is now it is in GenBank, and they've called it, I can't remember what the name is now, but it's something like something homo, like something or other. But that's what I understand. Maybe somebody wants to,
It'll be interesting
tell us their hoaxes again online, but I don't know.
It'll be interesting if future samples go in and match that as well. That'd be
and I think the Russians supposedly have done a lot of work as well. I don't know if they did DNA work, but they were finding the same thing, as my understanding, that it's not half of the DNA or whatever. It's just not. It's a kind of a person, but it's mated with, unknown DNA. So
interesting. That's pretty cool.
And the Russian government's the only one I understand that actually is devoted publicly, funds to it. Whereas here it seems like they just, oh, that doesn't exist. Or
there was an interesting FBI study.
Okay.
I forget the details, but they actually did do a study a few years ago into Bigfoot, which was interesting because why do a study into it if you don't think it's real? So, yeah, I have a video somewhere in the last couple of years that I did on that one. That was the first time I've ever seen our government actually look into or admit to looking into it.
I guess that brings to my mind, I have heard there's a military field guide, and they have common mammals in the northern North America, and one of them is Bigfoot. They had a little picture of it there, and they say if you come across this, they usually won't mess with you, they'll stay away from you, but beware, that type of thing.
Interesting. In your opinion, what is the implication if, let's just say, like tomorrow, Bigfoot is proven to be real, 100% without a doubt? They find 5 bodies, they test the DNA. Maybe they have 5 living ones that come out of the forest and introduce themselves, right? Like, what are the implications? Do you think?
Well, I can only speculate there. There could be all sorts of possibilities. I would guess, at least as far as it seems they don't want to admit that it exists, is that implications might be, for instance, that the revenue in national parks would go way down. Families who would want to take their kids there if they know that this intelligent, 600,000 plus pound humanoid being is wandering about, and then maybe some people have speculated that they could even have to create these, if they're people. I mean, if we find out that there aren't monsters or animals, that means you'd have to create like some type of habitat or a safe place for them, such as maybe like I'm trying to think what's the word, it's not quite the same, but Indian American,
like a reservation.
Yeah, reservation system. Sorry, I'm 30% indigenous myself, but yeah, something like that. And what are the implications of having to do all that? And some people even say that when Teddy Roosevelt created the national park system, he had Bigfoot in mind, maybe, or he had an experience with him.
That's an interesting thought.
And that's already what they've done, and because of that, I don't know. But
it's also one of those things with the 401 areas
kind
of coincide with a lot of the national parks as well. So interesting.
Yeah, and maybe some of that is Sasquatch. Maybe none of it is. I mean, maybe some people think people are walking into alternate dimensional portals or being abducted by aliens. I mean, who knows what's going on? But it's possible. I mean, Bigfoot could be interested in. It seems like they're really interested in children and women. I think they're less. What's the word? And they know that they aren't going to, shoot them or something like that. So,
right.
So they're not as intimidated by them. So.
Interesting. That makes sense. Have people close to you? They probably know you kind of do this. They probably know you have a YouTube channel where you go do the Bigfoot research and visit areas and stuff. So they probably know that you're a Bigfoot believer. So I guess the question is, how do you have people around you been skeptical about Bigfoot, and how do you handle skeptics that may or may not believe the same thing that you do or whatnot when it comes to like confronting the belief of Bigfoot, I guess.
Well, I know. I guess I've been fairly fortunate. Most people, if they don't believe in them, they're pretty respectful and think, well, maybe I don't really believe in them. In our culture, it's kind of become like a joke where, you have Harry and the Hendersons, and it just seems like it's been purposely turned into kind of a, something that's fanciful, like Santa Claus or what have you. But I guess I've had more skepticism, negative skepticism, a little less respectful as far as structures. And I try to point out to people, like on our drive up, I was mentioning, the ideal one would be a structure that is too elaborate to be deadfall, and it's too heavy duty to be made by human beings. So when you get that, it's kind of, what's the origin? I think I've seen lots of structures where I'm sure humans have contributed to it, but some of them have really large some do have boulders, but some of them large trees. You just wonder, how could a human do this without like heavy equipment? And
Right.
I do remember one time we were in the woods. It was me and Mark again, and we came across this guy in this off-road vehicle, and he had a couple other people with him, and I think he was drunk or something. And Mark was kind of, there's this guy his name is I can't remember his name. But anyway, he's very, you should maybe meet him or interview him sometime, but he will walk up to anybody without any fear and just say, I've seen a Sasquatch. Have you seen a Sasquatch? Just at a McDonald's, he'll just
That'd
like,
be a fun street interview type, funny thing to
yeah.
do.
And
Yeah.
he's an older guy, and he'll do that, and he has such a positive personality that people, kind of infectious, that people will, I know, if they've seen one in Vernal, surprisingly amount of people have seen one, and he'll record it. He'll like just like, can I record you? And he'll click record, and so he has his catalog. He wanted to write a book, but I don't know if he'll ever get around to it. But anyway, so Mark was trying to be more like him and try to take his example. So he goes out in the woods, and we pick the one guy who's drunk, and all of a sudden it goes badly for us. We mentioned Bigfoot, and he says, "You guys are the kind of guys that I have to go and do a rescue for." And then
Sorry, I keep looking over. Do you guys hear that?
no, what do you hear? I can hook up an audio, a bionic ear if you need me to.
I've heard like several branches snapping over there for the last like 5 minutes. I keep looking over there, but anyways, go on. Sorry about that.
I should fire up my bionic ear here in a minute. It'll make us.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he said, "You're the kind of guys that I need to go do these rescues for." And he kind of act like he owned the whole forest or something. I guess maybe he has some land up there, and he maybe inherited some wealth or something. I don't know. But anyway, then he claimed he had this friend who has, I think there's, this. What do you call it? This condition where you grow a lot of hair all over your face and everywhere, and says he has a friend like that, and he says, "You probably just saw my friend out there." I don't know. He's drunk, so maybe he was just the alcohol talking, but he was very belligerent. And then Mark said, "That's the last time I try to like just randomly walk up to a person and say, have you seen a Bigfoot?" So anyway, that was our experience. That's my only really negative experience was with the drunk guy, but I guess he's drunk, so what do you expect?
What do you expect, for sure? Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the structures and that kind of stuff. People on my channel, if you watch a lot of my videos, everyone thinks that I'm a skeptic and that I don't believe in Bigfoot for some reason.
Because you remain too neutral, maybe?
I'm really picky on what I'll accept as 100% proof. And I know there's not 100% proof, right? Like, but when I see someone turn a camera off and turn a camera on, and I'm like, why would you do that? If this was a real experience, why would you do that? Like, it just bugs me. I'll call some of those hoaxes. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. I admit that I could be wrong I could be wrong on every single one of my videos that I call a hoax, right? But there's definitely ones that I think that are more real, but the problem is it's like one out of every like 15 or 20. So it's like people will see like 14 of my videos, and it's like, oh, this guy doesn't believe in Bigfoot. And one of those things for a long time was the structure thing, or tree branches that have been snapped and different things. And I just saw so many videos in a short term where every single snapped branch that I saw that people were reviewing, oh, that has to be a Sasquatch. And that, I think, for some reason has bothered me. And I'm like, there's no way every single tree branch that's snapped
Yeah.
is a Bigfoot. The more and more I've actually delved into that kind of stuff more recently, where you do see these structures way out deep, and like you were saying earlier, where it's too big to obviously have been a human or something.
Hmm.
I've come a long way on being like, okay, well, this stuff does actually happen, and um, I think seeing and actually hearing people's experiences, like hearing your experiences with those, definitely helps me be like to realize, okay, yeah, there and other people as well. These structures do get built, and there are ones that are actually legitimate. For me, for the longest time though, it was like every single, like you look behind us and there's a little branch and snap back there. There has to be a Bigfoot. It's like, come on, man! Like there's a trail
Yeah.
right there. It could be
Yeah,
a deer. It could be a bear. It could be something else.
there's such thing as snow load, and yeah, it can break it off at like about 9 feet. And if it's like a bend or something, I mean, if it's a hard break, you can tell it's different. But yeah, that reminds me, Rio. We were joking one time, him and some other guys, that people were coming on his channel and they would take a freeze frame. It was kind of a fad for a little while. And they do a little red circle and say, "Here's a Bigfoot right here," and this is a little brown smudge, and so it's like a blob squatch thing. And I've been
Yeah,
there as well, where you look at this footage and think, this is garbage. I mean, this is obviously, but it's so hard when you get out there yourself. I mean, I've been there where I flip on the camera right after I heard something, and I have to explain to everybody, sorry, I didn't have the camera on, and
yeah,
yeah, and so when you get out there, it's hard to
right.
like meet your own standard when you're the armchair guys.
Exactly.
But
And
it's
then you meet people that have the actual story. Like I was really skeptical. If you look up the Saskatchewan sighting, I was really skeptical of that one. And then I got the guys on the video and I interviewed them for about an hour. And at the end of it, I was like, "Hey, this is real." Like I was wrong. I just kind of find things. That's the thing that we're meeting people and actually talking about this kind of stuff and actually having an open mind does help. Instead of just watching YouTube videos, you got to go there and actually talk to people and actually I think it
yeah.
helps to realize what could be true, for sure. For people who are thinking about getting out there and doing their own kind of research, whether that's just maybe not even for content, but maybe it is for content, to maybe try to prove Bigfoot's real for themselves or to record that kind of stuff. Do you have any advice for those people on how to get started? Advice for just anything, I guess.
Well, as far as that, I would, say again, just kind of what Rio was doing. People would say that, I don't know if this is true, but before him, there weren't as many people to kind of just, getting out off the trails. They would call it working the forest like Rio does or something. And so just kind of getting out there and, flipping on your camera, being, interested in kind of exploring stuff. Obviously, we don't want anybody to get lost. I always try to have a GPS coordinate of where I left my car as a backup, and then I have my phone on top of that, and all trails, multiple backups to make sure you don't end up lost. But yeah, you still have to explore. And as far as posting content, this genre, as far as making money on YouTube, maybe isn't the best, I would say, because
Right.
I've heard more. It's if somebody has a problem, you go on YouTube and for instance, like how do I fix my car's I don't know some odd problem that the mechanic couldn't fix or something, and then you have to send it to the mechanic, something like that. If someone has a problem or something that's not an essential topic like Bigfoot, it's a little more on the entertainment side of it, which you can make money, but I mean that's if you're a hoaxer and doing that. But it's more if you're walking around the woods again, like I was saying, you might put people to sleep. But I guess interviews would be good. But again, the challenge is finding people to interview for that. So I don't know if I have the best advice on that, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. No, you're
You
good.
kind of just have to. I have noticed recently though that a positive thing, YouTube seems to be rewarding more content where you're actually getting out there and doing something, whether it's even someone exploring in southern Utah or ancient Indian ruins, and they've kind of shifted a little more away from people who are just have stories they're recounting or stuff they've taken from someone else and they've put it on their video, or so that seems like they're kind of shifting away from that a little. So that's a positive, I would say, as far as
Yeah.
YouTube and sharing your own original work. So even if sometimes you're just walking around the woods.
Right.
If you're a very good filmographer, like I think you might be a little better than me as far as equipment, then that helps as well. If you can edit it and make it look, I need to get a drone. That's one thing that would
Yeah,
company.
that was actually my next question. Is
You think you have one, right?
I have a few drones and stuff.
Yeah.
I've done some of those flyovers where I kind of fly over some areas
I
and
need
kind
to
of
do
look
some of
around.
that.
And
I was
it's
looking at
fun.
one. I want to get the, what is it? There's a new one out that's not too bad, but it would be decent footage. The flip, like DJI
I like the
flip.
flip. I don't have one, but I like what I've seen about it.
I might get one of those because
Yeah.
it's a little more my price range.
Yeah, that was actually my next question. Was what equipment setups?
Okay, equipment.
Equipment setups. Anything that can help with that. I guess the drone is a good one for sure.
Well, I've gone through different equipments during the years. I mean, I used to have a mini camcorder. Those are okay for zooming in. I like those for that. Maybe they're better at the stabilization than they used to be, but that was used to be kind of their Achilles, tendon there. But right now, I was using. I think you have one now, the Osmo Pocket, and you have the Gen 3, I believe.
Yeah.
And I have the Gen 2.
Yeah, you were the reason I actually got that.
Yeah,
You were the first one I actually saw that had one
Gen
of
3.
those. So, yeah.
And that one has a bigger screen, I think, on the front, so you can see, what you're doing more.
They actually have a 4 now.
There's a 4. Okay.
I'm not sure I think you can get it on Amazon, even though it's supposedly not accessible in the United States.
So maybe I'll get the 3 just because they've probably marked that down now that the 4 is out.
Yeah, that's true. They also have, I think, at Costco right now, the Insta360s version, the Lumo.
So really
Pro.
wide. 360.
Has 2 cameras, one zoom, one non-zoom, which is pretty
good.
nice.
I'll have to look into it.
Yeah.
And then I also switched over to a DJI more action cam. It's a little, because mainly I wanted a little wider angle because I tend to be walking around the forest, and I wanted a little more expansive where you could see all at once what I'm seeing, because it's always seemed like it's a little more, kind of your kind of narrow field of vision.
That wide angle.
And I think they've
camera.
gotten wider on those as well. The Osmos, each iteration or version is a little bit.
You can actually also buy a little lens and put it on the outside.
And I would always lose those. The magnetic thing you would put on. I tried those, but they only last about 1 season, 1 year, and I would lose it. But
the action camera might be the way to go. It's waterproof as well.
Yeah, so I switched over to an action cam, but I think the video quality though is still better on that one. But anyway, then there's audio. I've been looking in more to, options for, they have these parabolic dishes and things. I had one, but I couldn't seem to get one that was compatible with the recorder I was using. But those are a little more expensive. There's one that, look up Crider Explorations. He has one that's decent. I ran it through AI and it didn't like the actual recorder I was using, but he had some things set up to maximize the performance of the actual parabolic dish, which was good. It just AI recommended pairing it with another recorder. I have here a Zoom. I think it was H4, which is an older version, and then there's some newer versions. That's a pretty good recorder, and you can plug in a external mic in tandem with that. I can't remember the name. I was looking up one which would lower the hiss kind of in the background, and then kind of put one of them inside the parabolic dish and one of them outside the parabolic dish. And I haven't done that yet, so that's all more theoretical.
I like the parabolic dish idea where you can kind of reach out there and get audio from far away instead of just right around you.
And it's more directional, so you have to kind of move it the right direction, but it definitely makes it more sensitive. And so anyway, people can these days go on AI and like Grok or ChatGPT, and you can research audio setups, and it's pretty good. I mean, occasionally you have to quiz it and get it to tell you what you wanted, but I don't know. There's lots of options out there for video and camera and audio.
Yeah, what do you think Bigfoot actually is?
And that's probably the $1 million question. I'm probably not. Maybe I'm the least qualified to answer that question, but everybody has their own opinion. I did a video, actually, one of my most recent videos. I can't remember exactly what it's entitled, but it's basically, I think it's something like, you guessed it right, Bigfoot didn't evolve on Earth or something like that. So, I don't know what they are, but I've just, looked at a lot of different stories and things, and among them, there are some weird things going on that make it seem like they aren't just a simple, wood ape, and that may have more like people, but then they have some potentially some unusual activity that surrounds some of the sightings, and I look at how there are reports that how they move sometimes, where they can move so quickly it's almost cartoonish, like their muscles are not subject to gravity on the level that we are. So I don't know. I take that and I'm kind of extrapolating to think that maybe just maybe they were either evolved or created on another planet that had more gravity, and they're here, and it's kind of like us on the moon or something, where we can jump in slow motion, or but that's almost zero gravity. But and then yeah, there's just other things where at least pose a question of were they here on Earth like us, and then possibly maybe we were created for a smaller planet where it seems like humans are a little underdeveloped to actually survive in the wild here. Maybe that's not the case, and maybe that's it's just sheer
Huh.
because of soft living, and maybe we've regressed from like Homo habilis or whatever was prior to us. But maybe some people say maybe we used to be on Mars or something, and we were brought over to here, and I don't know. So the
That's
bottom line is
interesting.
I don't
Yeah.
know, but just have theories and questions, and I'm just wondering. So
Yeah.
that's kind of answers your
Interesting.
question.
You're the I haven't heard that before, which is really interesting. But I also just recently, a couple weeks ago, I was talking to someone, and they had like a theory about humans' skin
Hmm.
being the only animal basically on Earth that gets basically sunburned to a certain extent, I guess, of some
That's a good
sort.
point. Yeah.
You got like lizards and snakes that go sit out there for 12 hours a day. You have other animals that are out there, out there all the time. I guess they have fur maybe, which is maybe, but a lot of fur apparently, from what I understand, is clear, and you're
Hmm.
actually seeing the skin pigment through the fur. I know polar bears are,
Hmm.
I don't know, something like that. It's interesting. So that's, I mean, it's not exactly the same, but it's kind of a similar with gravity and different effects on humans and how maybe, yeah,
Yeah, I guess if you had a gray alien and set him out in the sun, it'd probably be, I don't know, maybe he'd get burned, but it's because he's maybe from another planet and he doesn't, I don't know, again, have, that's more extreme than a human, but yeah, not
yeah,
as well adapted, I guess is your point.
interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
And I do, believe in a creator, and, some of our DNA is the same. I'm thinking maybe that's the divine part of the, DNA, and maybe then there's something else that was used in the makeup of whatever planets to kind of, and maybe that's why maybe we didn't even mate with Bigfoot. Maybe they were both. That's DNA is from a divine source, and then the other stuff is just what if terrestrial material from whatever planet you're from. So
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, just the theories I'm
Awesome.
throwing out there.
Yeah. Well, I lost lost some of our cameras, guys, but yeah, I just wanted it's been an awesome interview. Got to know a lot of stories, a lot of experiences you've had, and got into a lot of interviews that you've had with other people as well, and just some knowledge about Bigfoot, and whether it's about investigating or just experiences overall. I really appreciate you coming on the channel and kind of giving us some of your Bigfoot wisdom, I guess you would call it, or whatever. But yeah, thanks for coming on. Just before we end, is there any throw out your socials on there? I know you're on YouTube. Are you on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram, or anywhere else right now at all, or maybe leave us with those places that people can find you, or anything else you'd like to leave the audience with, I guess, before before we finish.
Well, yeah, I am on YouTube. Obviously, we mentioned Wasatch Sasquatch. If you want to email me, I mean, if someone perchance wants to go on a outing this year or next year, you can. And yeah, we could probably go on a, if not a day trip, then if not a camp out, then a day trip, something like that. And I do have a page on Facebook, Wasatch Sasquatch again. So yeah, and it might even be under Wasatch Wendigo, and I post my videos, links to my videos there as well. So if someone's on Facebook, then you're welcome to go on there as well. So click like. And another thing I'll mention, you like probably like on your channel, you notice that you might have the algorithm picked up your video, and occasionally 70% of the people aren't even subbed. So yeah, be sure to subscribe if you want to see the content again and never see it again. And these days you have to click like this little bell to get all of the different, to be notified. Otherwise, the algorithm will, even if you're subscribed to them, it'll randomly just pick things and it won't show you everything the person's posted. So be sure to do all that and set that up right. YouTube's funny these days.
Yeah, for sure. Anyways,
Thanks for having me on as well. It's good to do an interview on occasion. So
yeah, it's always good to hang out, get out in the forest, have a little fun.
yeah,
Get to
we're in
know
a
some
place where
stories.
there could be Sasquatch that purposely brought us here. So
Yeah, who knows? But
there's
yeah,
a place you call Scary Forest just up the road. I
just
think
up the road, Scary
you have
Forest.
to go there sometime.
We need to go there for sure. Make some videos. Bring the thermals. Bring the audio. I
Yeah.
have thermals. You have audio. You have some for thermals too. It seems like, but yeah, let's get out there and do some more stuff. Yeah, if anyone else wants to collaborate with me or with Rex, hit us up. You know where to find us now. So, yeah, appreciate it.